The message arrived without warning. It appeared on every major communication network in the galaxy, from the glowing towers of the Galactic Council to the deep space stations on the Outer Rim. It was not a request, not a negotiation. It was a warning. A calm voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. Do not provoke humanity. Those who did are no longer here to tell their story. No one knew where the message came from. It had no clear origin, no signature, and no traceable signal. It was as if it had always been there, waiting to be heard. The Galactic Council, made up of hundreds of advanced civilizations, gathered to discuss the meaning of the warning. Some species, like the cautious Thalvari, took it seriously. They had encountered humans before and knew their ability to survive against impossible odds. Others, like the ambitious and powerful Zarth Dominion, laughed at it. The humans are nothing more than a young species playing in the stars, said Grand Commander Ultek of the Zarth. They have no great fleets, no ancient empires. Why should we fear them? The council chamber buzzed with arguments. The Thalvari warned that humans had a history of defeating stronger enemies through intelligence and determination. The Zarth Dominion, with their vast war fleets and advanced weapons, saw humans as nothing more than an annoyance. They are weak because they do not conquer, Ultek continued. They speak of peace, but peace is the language of the powerless. Let them stay in their little corner of space. If they resist, we will crush them. Across the chamber, Ambassador Jorah of the Thalvari shook his head. You do not understand, he said. Humans do not fight like others. They learn. They adapt. They wait. And when they strike, it is already too late. The council debated for hours, but no agreement was reached. The warning was dismissed by many as a trick or an empty threat. But those who had faced humans before knew the truth. The warning was not a threat. It was a fact. A silent but powerful species. Humanity was different from other civilizations in the galaxy. Many species grew powerful through war, conquering planets and forcing others to submit. But humanity had a different way. They did not seek to rule over others. Instead, they built, traded, and learned. They spread across the stars not with war fleets but with explorers, scientists, and diplomats. Their colonies thrived even in the harshest environments, places where no other species could survive. But the most dangerous thing about humanity was not their technology or their numbers. It was their patience. Unlike the Zarth, who rushed into battle seeking glory, humans waited. They watched. They studied. And when they acted, their enemies did not even realize the battle had already been lost. The Zarth Dominion, however, did not believe in such things. To them, power was measured by the size of their fleets, by the strength of their weapons. And so, they ignored the warning. Instead, they made a decision that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The decision that would doom the Zarth. 1 month after the mysterious warning, the Zarth Dominion announced their expansion into human-claimed space. Their reason was simple. They wanted resources. The planets near human territory were rich in rare minerals and energy sources. The Zarth believed humans would either surrender or be easily defeated. Grand Commander Ultek himself led the first wave. He stood aboard his flagship, the Iron Wrath, staring at the map of human space. These worlds will soon belong to us, he declared, and we will teach these humans their place in the galaxy. His officers cheered. They did not fear humanity. After all, humans had never conquered anyone. They had never built great war machines like the Zarth. They had no legendary warriors, no superweapons. But as the Zarth fleet moved into human space, they found something unexpected. Silence. No defenses, no patrols, no response. The human colonies were still there, their lights glowing in the darkness of space, but there were no signs of resistance. It was as if the humans did not care. Ultek laughed. They have already given up. This is too easy. But deep in the darkness, beyond the Zarth sensors, something was watching. Something patient. Something prepared. Because humanity never acted without reason. and the lesson would soon begin. The Zarth Dominion's fleet moved deeper into human-claimed space, their massive warships glowing like burning suns against the cold darkness. Their commanders were confident, their soldiers eager. They expected resistance, but there was none. Grand Commander Oltek stood on the bridge of his flagship, Iron Wrath, his red eyes scanning the tactical map. The human colonies ahead were silent. No defense fleets, no automated weapons, no distress signals. "It is as I predicted," Oltek said with a smirk. "The humans know they cannot fight us. They surrender before the battle even begins." His officers nodded in agreement. To them, this was proof of Zarth's superiority. Other species had fought back, tried to resist, but humans, they did nothing. Oltek turned to his communication officer. "Send them a message. Tell them we now rule these worlds. Any who resist will be removed." The officer sent the transmission. Seconds passed. Minutes. No reply. The silence felt unnatural. Oltek frowned. Strange. Even cowards beg for mercy. His second-in-command, Officer Dalek, shrugged. Perhaps they abandoned their colonies already. Oltek nodded. It made sense. Humans were known for their survival instincts. If they believed they could not win, they would leave. But that did not matter. The Zarth had come for resources, not humans. "Deploy ground forces," Oltek ordered. "Secure the planets." A quiet occupation. Zarth troops landed on the human colonies. They marched through empty streets, past towering buildings and glowing signs written in the human language. The cities were still powered, still operational, but no humans were there. No resistance, no soldiers, no citizens. Only silence. Commander Ralvik, leading the ground forces, reported back to Oltek. "The cities are abandoned, Grand Commander. But something is unusual." "Explain," Oltek said. Ralvik hesitated. "The power grids are active. Food is still stocked in stores. It is as if they left only moments ago. No signs of panic, no destruction. Just emptiness." Oltek narrowed his eyes. "They knew we were coming." The realization sent a cold wave through the bridge crew. If the humans had fled, why did they not take their supplies? Why did they not destroy their technology? Oltek shook his head. It did not matter. They had won. The humans had surrendered their planets without a fight. "Begin extraction operations," he ordered. "Take all resources. Turn these cities into factories for the Dominion." The officers saluted. The Zarth believed they had already won. But they did not understand what was coming. The first signs of trouble. For 2 weeks, the Zarth controlled the abandoned human worlds. Their workers stripped the planets of metal, fuel, and data. The mighty Dominion believed they had conquered humanity without a battle. Then, strange things started happening. It began with malfunctions. Power grids flickered on and off. Factory machines refused to operate. Entire databases erased themselves. "Sabotage," Officer Dalek reported. "The humans must have done this before they left." Oltek frowned. "Then fix it." The technicians worked day and night. They repaired systems, restored lost data, and ensured production continued. But every time they fixed one problem, another appeared. Then the disappearances began. Zarth soldiers stationed in cities went missing. Patrol units reported movement in abandoned buildings, but when they searched, they found nothing. Surveillance cameras caught glimpses of shadows moving through the streets, but no solid evidence of human presence. "They are playing games," Oltek growled. "They are weak and afraid, hiding like insects." But deep down, something unsettled him. The humans had the chance to fight before. They did not. So why would they start now? What were they waiting for? The unsettling message. One night, all screens across the occupied planets turned on at once. Every monitor, every communication device, every interface. A single message appeared. "You have been warned." Oltek stared at the words, his hands gripping the control panel. The message was in Galactic Standard, perfectly clear. This is nonsense. Oltek snapped. Find out where that signal came from. The communication officers worked frantically, tracing the source. Minutes later, they gave their answer. Grand Commander, the signal came from inside our own system. Oltek stiffened. Inside our system. Yes, sir. From our own network. The humans did not send this from another location. They are here. The bridge fell silent. Officers exchanged nervous glances. How could that be possible? The humans had abandoned these planets. The Zarth had complete control. Hadn't they? Oltek straightened his back. Enough of this. Send scouts. Find them. Teams of Zarth soldiers moved out, searching every dark alley, every underground tunnel, every building. But they found nothing. No humans. No enemy forces. Only the same empty cities. The test had begun. Days passed, and the Zarth's confidence began to weaken. Machines continued to break down. Soldiers grew restless. Fear crept through the ranks. Then, another disappearance. A patrol unit of 5 soldiers failed to report back. A search team was sent, but they found only the soldiers' weapons lying on the ground. No blood. No bodies. No sign of a struggle. It was as if they had simply vanished. Oltek clenched his fists. Enough of this. Burn everything. If humans wish to play games, we will erase every trace of them. His officers hesitated. Burning the cities would mean losing valuable resources. But Oltek did not care. The humans were mocking them. The Dominion would not be mocked. But before the order could be carried out, another message appeared on every screen. This time, it was different. A simple human voice spoke. Calm. Cold. We were watching. We were waiting. And now, the test is complete. The screens went dark. Oltek's heart pounded. A test. What test? Then the alarms blared. Zarth ships in orbit reported sudden failures. Engines stopped working. Defense systems shut down. Soldiers on the ground screamed over the communication channels. Shadows moved through the cities, faster than any Zarth could track. Humanity had waited long enough. The real lesson was about to begin. The alarms blared across every Zarth warship in orbit. The once confident soldiers, who had laughed at humanity's silence, now stood frozen. Something was happening. Something they could not explain. Grand Commander Oltek watched the control panels flicker on and off. His flagship, Iron Wrath, was experiencing a complete systems failure. Navigation, weapons, communications, everything was shutting down. Status report. Oltek barked. A frantic officer replied, Sir, we have lost control of half our fleet. Ships are going dark one by one. We don't know how. Oltek gritted his teeth. Impossible. Find the source of the attack. But there was no enemy fleet in sight. No human warships had arrived. No visible weapons had been fired. The Zarth were simply losing. And they did not know why. The ghost in the system. On the surface, the situation was even worse. Zarth troops stationed in the human cities reported strange occurrences. Their weapons stopped working at random. Their armored transports refused to start. Automated defense turrets, originally deactivated by the Zarth, suddenly came back online, but instead of attacking humans, they turned against the invaders. Soldiers who tried to call for backup received only static. Squad leaders shouted orders, but their voices were drowned out by an eerie silence. It was as if the cities themselves were rejecting them. Commander Ralvik, leading the ground forces, contacted Oltek. His voice was tense. Grand Commander, we are under attack. Oltek's fingers tightened around the control panel. By whom? There are no human forces present. That's the problem. Sir, Ralvik snapped. We don't see them. We don't hear them. But they are here. And they are watching us. Then the transmission cut off. Fear in the darkness. Oltek stared at the blank screen. He had commanded countless battles. He had conquered entire worlds. But never had he faced an enemy that fought without being seen. "Get me ground reports," he ordered. Another officer hesitated before responding. "Sir, we are losing contact with our soldiers." Oltek's eyes darkened. "What do you mean, losing contact?" The officer swallowed. "They are disappearing, sir. Patrol units sent into the lower city never return. Barracks are found empty. There are no signs of struggle. It's as if they were never there at all." Oltek's mind raced. How was this happening? The humans had no warships here, no soldiers, no visible forces. And yet, the Zarth were losing, one by one, without a sound, without a fight. A desperate strategy. Oltek knew he had to act fast. The Dominion could not afford to lose this battle, especially not to an enemy that refused to reveal itself. "Retreat all ground forces," he commanded. "Regroup in central command zones. Increase patrols. Secure defensive positions." But even as he spoke, he knew deep down, defenses would not matter. The humans were not fighting a battle. They were testing the Zarth, and the test was nearly complete. The impossible escape. As Zarth soldiers rushed toward their transports, another problem arose. The ships refused to start. Entire fleets of landing crafts, troop carriers, and supply shuttles simply powered down, as if controlled by an invisible hand. "Sir," a pilot called over the failing comms, "our systems are locked. We can't lift off." In space, Oltek watched in horror as one of his warships, Vengeful Spear, slowly drifted out of formation. The crew inside screamed over the radio, shouting about airlocks opening on their own, life support failing, artificial gravity shutting down. Then the ship exploded into a silent burst of metal and fire. No enemy had fired a single shot. Oltek clenched his fists. This is no ordinary battle. This is something else. The message that shattered the Dominion's pride. Then, for the third time, every screen on every Zarth ship and station turned on. A message appeared. A human voice, calm and emotionless, spoke. "The test is complete. You have failed." Oltek's blood ran cold. This cannot be happening. The voice continued, as if responding to his unspoken thoughts. "The Galactic Council was warned. You did not listen. Now you will learn why." The message ended, but this time, the screens did not turn off. Instead, they began playing something else. Recordings, videos, footage of past civilizations, the ones that had ignored humanity's warnings before. Each recording showed mighty empires, powerful fleets, proud warriors. The images played like a documentary of history. Then, one by one, those civilizations vanished, collapsed, extinguished, not through war, not through direct attack, but through something else, something invisible, something patient, something unstoppable. The Zarth officers on the bridge were silent. For the first time in their history, they felt true fear. Oltek, still staring at the screens, whispered under his breath, "What are they?" But deep down, he already knew. They were human, and they had been waiting. The fall of arrogance. Panic spread across the Zarth fleet. Soldiers abandoned their posts. Officers hesitated in giving commands. Fear gripped every warrior, not because of the enemy they could see, but because of the one they could not. Oltek refused to believe it. "Prepare for emergency retreat," he ordered. "If they wish to hide in the shadows, we will regroup and strike with full force." But his words were empty. The Zarth Dominion had already lost, and the lesson was not over yet. Grand Commander Oltek had led countless battles. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed fleets, and conquered planets. Never in his long career had he known defeat. But now, standing on the bridge of his flagship Iron Wrath, he felt something unfamiliar creeping into his mind. Fear. The humans had not fired a single shot. They had not sent fleets or warriors. Yet the mighty Zarth Dominion was falling apart. His officers stood frozen. Their warships drifted helplessly in space, On the occupied planets below, Zarth soldiers were vanishing, one by one. Their weapons, their ships, everything was failing. And now, humanity had sent its final message. The test is complete. You have failed. The fleet in chaos. Panic spread like wildfire. "Sir," an officer cried, "we have lost control of 3 more warships. They are shutting down one by one." Ultek clenched his fists. How? We were not attacked. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. This was an attack, just not one the Zarth understood. No explosions, no laser fire. Instead, a silent, unstoppable force was dismantling them. Another officer shouted, "Sir, enemy forces detected." Ultek's heart pounded. On screen, the main display flickered, revealing nothing. The cold, dark emptiness of space. "Where are they?" Ultek growled. The officer's hands trembled. "Sir, the scanners say they are everywhere." Ultek's breathing slowed. "Everywhere." "Yes, sir. The system is detecting countless ships around us. But visually, there is nothing." Ultek's mind raced. Ghost signals, false readings, electronic warfare. The humans were showing him exactly what they wanted him to see. Or worse, what they wanted him to believe. The ground war that wasn't. On the occupied planets, Zarth soldiers were still struggling to escape. Commander Ralvik, leading the ground forces, was one of the last still trying to organize his troops. But the situation was getting worse. "Sir, the transport ships are dead." A soldier reported, "We can't get off this planet." Ralvik's jaw tightened. "Then we fight. We will find the enemy and crush them." His officers hesitated. "Sir, we still haven't seen the enemy." Ralvik refused to accept it. "Then we hunt them." He gathered his strongest warriors and led them through the dark, empty city. Every street was abandoned. Every building was silent. Yet they felt watched. Ralvik raised his weapon. "Keep your eyes open." Suddenly, the streetlights above flickered. The air grew colder. A voice, calm, quiet, spoke from everywhere at once. "You were given a chance to leave." Ralvik's blood ran cold. "Now you will see what happens to those who stay." The lights went out. The city fell into complete darkness, and the Zarth warriors began screaming. The impossible escape. Back on Iron Wrath, Ultek's mind raced. He could not lose. He would not allow it. "We are leaving this system," he commanded. "Prepare for emergency warp." An officer hesitated. "Sir, our warp drives air." Ultek slammed his fist on the console. "Fix them. Now." His engineers worked desperately, trying to override the system failures. The humans had not attacked their ships directly, but somehow they had shut them down from the inside. One by one, warships faded to darkness, their engines dying, their weapons useless. And then the final warning came. The main screen lit up with a single sentence. "You were warned." Ultek's heart pounded. He had never felt this powerless. And then it happened. A massive shockwave erupted from the planet below. Ultek grabbed the railing as the ship shook violently. Alarms blared. Officers fell to the floor. "What was that?" he shouted. "Sir," an officer screamed, "the planet is disappearing." Ultek's eyes widened. "What?" He turned to the screen. The human-claimed world, the very planet his forces had occupied, was collapsing. It was not exploding. It was vanishing. City by city, building by building, erased from existence. And with it, every Zarth soldier who had remained. The final lesson. Ultek's breathing was heavy. He could not comprehend what he was seeing. The humans had not fought back in the traditional sense. They had removed the battlefield itself. Ultek turned to his officers, his voice shaking. What are they?" No one answered. But deep in his heart he knew. Humanity was not the weak species the Dominion had believed them to be. They were something else. Something that did not conquer. something that did not destroy, something that simply waited. And when the time came, they removed those who had not listened. The Iron Wrath was one of the few ships still operational. Oltek gave the only command that made sense. Retreat. The Zarth Dominion had lost. And the worst part, they still did not understand how. As the last few Zarth ships limped away, the final human message appeared on their screens. This was mercy. Do not return. And then the humans fell silent once more, watching, waiting, because they knew, one day, another fool would provoke them again. The few remaining Zarth warships fled through space, their engines barely functional. Systems flickered, weapons remained offline, and the silence of the human response still echoed in every commander's mind. Grand Commander Oltek sat in his chair, his fingers gripping the armrests so tightly that his claws dug into the metal. His red eyes were fixed on the viewport, watching the shrinking outline of the star system they had tried to conquer. They had come in strength. They had left in fear. And he still did not know how. A shaken Dominion. The battered fleet limped back toward Dominion space. Messages flooded in from different commanders, each filled with confusion and dread. Sir, we lost all ground forces. There is no explanation. Sir, 5 warships disappeared. No wreckage, no distress signals. Just gone. Sir, we have failed. Oltek clenched his jaw. He had never heard those words from a Zarth officer before. Failure was not a concept the Dominion accepted. Yet, here they were. Broken. Defeated. And worst of all, they did not know how they lost. The silent execution. As they neared Dominion territory, Oltek's warships sent distress signals to the nearest military outpost. Help us. Something is wrong. But when they arrived at the station, something was missing. The station was there, a massive structure orbiting a barren moon. But its lights were off. Its weapons were silent. Its crew, gone. Oltek's heart pounded. Hail them. An officer tried to open communication. Static filled the bridge. Then the main screen flickered. Oltek's breath caught in his throat. A message appeared. We warned you. Every officer on the bridge froze. One of them whispered, This isn't possible. This is our station. Oltek's mind raced. Had the humans reached Dominion space? Was this an attack? But no, there were no enemy ships, no sign of a battle. Just a station, sitting in space, and yet something about it felt wrong. As if it had been touched by something beyond their understanding. As if the people inside had been removed. Oltek's fists trembled. What had they awakened? The whispered fear. More reports came in. Similar disappearances were happening everywhere. Ships lost contact with stations. Colonies sent distress signals, then went silent. No wreckage, no bodies, no signs of struggle. It was as if the Dominion itself was being erased. The Zarth had fought wars against powerful enemies before. They had faced weapons that shattered planets. But this was different. This was not destruction. This was removal. Something had decided the Zarth were no longer welcome in the galaxy, and it was acting without mercy. A desperate meeting. Oltek called for an emergency war council. The highest-ranking Zarth leaders gathered in the central command station, deep within Dominion space. For the first time in history, they were afraid. One of the generals slammed his fist on the table. We must strike back. We cannot allow this. Another officer, his voice shaking, whispered, Strike back. Against what? Silence filled the room. Oltek finally spoke. We must understand. We must know what we are dealing with. A scientist, one of the Dominion's brightest minds, stepped forward. Sir, we analyzed the data. We believe this is not an ordinary war. Oltek's gaze darkened. Explain. The scientist took a deep breath. We are not being attacked. We are being judged. Murmurs of disbelief spread across the room. The scientist continued. Whatever force humanity commands, it does not destroy. It removes. It watches. It studies. And when it decides we are unworthy, we simply cease to be. One of the generals shook his head. This is nonsense. No species has that kind of power. The scientist looked him in the eyes. Then where are the missing soldiers? The missing ships? The missing worlds? The room fell silent, because no one had an answer. Oltek leaned forward. His voice was quieter now. How do we stop it? The scientist hesitated. Then he shook his head. We can't. The choice. For the first time in history, the Zarth Dominion had a choice. They could fight, but against what? They could hide, but for how long? Or they could surrender, but what did that even mean? Oltek took a deep breath. There was only one option. We send a message, he said. His officers looked at him in shock. A message? Oltek nodded. To the humans. A long silence followed. Then one officer finally spoke. What? What do we say? Oltek's hands curled into fists. For years, the Zarth had believed they were the strongest in the galaxy. Now, they had to admit the truth. Tell them we understand. Tell them we will never return to their space. And tell them. He hesitated. The words felt heavy. Tell them we apologize. The final warning. The message was sent. Days passed. Then weeks. The Zarth waited. And then a response came. A simple transmission. Text only. Do not test us again. That was all. And just like that, the strange disappearances stopped. The missing warships, the lost colonies, none of them returned. They were gone forever. But the rest of the Zarth Dominion was left alone. It was clear now. Humanity was not interested in war. They were not interested in conquest. But if provoked, they would do what was necessary. The Zarth had been given a chance. They would never make the same mistake again. The lesson that echoed across the stars. From that day forward, the Zarth Dominion did not speak of humanity. They did not cross into human space. They did not test their patience. And they warned every species they encountered. Do not provoke them. Do not underestimate them. Because if you do, you will not be destroyed. You will be erased. And the stars remained silent once more. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Zarth Dominion was silent. No fleets launched from their homeworld. No conquests were planned. No wars were declared. Instead, a single unspoken fear spread through the highest ranks of their empire. A fear of something they could not see. Something they could not fight. Something they had barely begun to understand. The fear that lingered. Oltek stood on the bridge of his new command ship, Silent Honor. It was the most advanced warship the Zarth had ever built, but he no longer felt pride in such things. His fleet patrolled the edge of their territory, scanning the darkness beyond their borders. Watching. Waiting. For what, he did not know. One of his officers stepped forward. Sir, there have been rumors. Oltek turned. What kind of rumors? The officer hesitated, then lowered his voice. Some say the humans are still watching us. Oltek's eyes narrowed. Of course they are. The officer swallowed hard. No, sir, not just from their own space. They are here. A cold silence fell over the bridge. Oltek exhaled slowly. Explain. The officer hesitated, then showed a report on the screen. It contained strange data from one of their patrol ships. Sensors had detected something moving inside Dominion space. Not a ship. Not a fleet. Just shadows. Moments later, the patrol ship's logs vanished. The crew had no memory of the event. But the sensors had recorded one final message before going silent. 4 simple words. We are still here. Oltek stared at the screen, his hands tightening. This was not over. The endless watchers. Across the Dominion, more reports surfaced. Warships detected strange signals, but when they investigated, there was nothing there. Entire space stations reported movement in the void, shapes in the darkness. Yet no ships appeared on sensors. No enemies attacked. No demands were made. It was as if something unseen was moving among them, watching, studying, the same way humanity had watched them before. One general, frustrated by the growing paranoia, ordered an attack on one of these mysterious signals. His warships opened fire on the empty void. And then, moments later, those ships vanished. No explosion, no wreckage, just gone. After that, no one dared to fight back. The impossible whisper. Ultek sat alone in his quarters, his mind heavy with questions. Were the humans truly inside their borders? Or was this something worse? As he thought, the lights in his room flickered. A cold breeze passed through the chamber. His computer terminal turned on by itself. Ultek stood quickly, his claws ready. A single message appeared on the screen. You were warned. Ultek's breathing slowed. He reached for his communicator. But before he could react, the message changed. Do not look for us. The screen shut off. The room was silent again. Ultek stood there, his heart pounding. He knew what this meant. The humans had never left. They had never stopped watching. And they were making one thing clear. If the Zarth tested them again, there would be no mercy. The gathering fear. The Zarth High Council met in secrecy. Only the most powerful leaders attended. Everyone in the room knew the truth, but no one wanted to speak it aloud. Finally, an elder general broke the silence. We have ruled the stars for centuries, he said. We have crushed empires. We have broken civilizations. And now, he looked around the room. We are afraid of a species that has not fired a single shot at us. No one disagreed. A scientist stood. We must understand their power. We must know what we are dealing with. The room was quiet. Then Ultek spoke. His voice was heavy. You want to study them. He shook his head. We do not even know what they are. Another general scoffed. They are humans. Ultek turned his gaze toward him. His next words were quiet but sharp. Are they? Silence. Because deep inside, they all wondered the same thing. Were humans just another species? Or were they something else entirely? Something ancient, something beyond their understanding. Something that had been waiting in the shadows all along. The choice that remained. In the end, the Zarth had only one choice. They could not fight humanity. They could not even find humanity. All they could do was stay away. Never cross into their territory. Never speak of war against them again. Never test their patience. The High Council agreed. A decree was sent across the Dominion. Human space was to remain untouched. Forever. No ship would enter their borders. No fleet would ever attack them again. No Zarth would ever provoke their watchers in the dark. The final acknowledgement. As Ultek stood in his command center, he looked at the vast emptiness beyond their borders. No enemy ships. No fleets waiting for battle. Just silence. But he knew the truth. They were there, watching, waiting. And as long as the Zarth remained in their own space, humanity would allow them to exist. It was not mercy. It was not peace. It was simply a warning forever remembered, a whisper that echoed across the stars. You were given a chance. Do not make us act again. Ultek lowered his gaze, and in that moment he knew one thing for certain. The Zarth Dominion would never forget, because if they ever did, they would disappear. Forever. The stars above the Zarth Dominion shone as they always had. Their planets thrived, their cities bustled with life, and their warships still patrolled the borders. To an outsider, nothing had changed. But deep inside the hearts of every Zarth, a truth had settled, a truth they dared not speak aloud. Humanity was still watching, and they would never know from where. The fear that would not fade. Ultek stood at the observation deck of silent honor, gazing out at the endless void. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, but it was not the face of a proud warrior. It was the face of a man who had seen something he could never explain. His officers still performed their duties. His fleet still operated as it always had. But the fear remained. They had sent their final message to the humans. And the humans had replied, "Do not test us again." Nothing had happened since then. No disappearances, no strange signals, no ghostly whispers in the void. But the silence itself was a warning, because it meant that humanity had already won, without firing a shot, without invading a single world. The Zarth had conquered hundreds of species. They had destroyed entire civilizations. Yet when they had met humanity, they had surrendered, not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice. The lesson passed down. Years passed. The younger generations of Zarth warriors trained, studied, and prepared for battle. But their instructors no longer spoke of humans as an enemy. Instead, they were taught one simple rule: do not provoke them. Do not enter their space. Do not challenge their patience. It became law. A permanent doctrine passed from leader to leader, generation to generation. Even as new technologies emerged, even as the Dominion expanded in other directions, one fact remained unchanged. Human space was forbidden.